not going fast, I might as well not be alive.
A lot of the drivers have a background in illegal street racing. It's all just part of youth culture.
As the culture has moved on, they've also wanted to compete at more and more of a higher level against better and better racers. The street racers are actually moving off the streets and onto tracks and organized events. Need for Speed ProStreet is the latest version in the long line of Need for Speed games. This game is focusing on an upcoming evolution of street racing where it's becoming more legitimized. The street racers are actually moving off the streets and onto tracks and organized events. Historically, Need for Speed has been influenced heavily by illegal street racing. And that's where the history of the game comes from. That's where the racing comes from. That's where the culture comes from inside this game.
99% of the guys that are racing in this culture came from the street. They had some fast street car, and they wanted to go faster, and they wanted to do all this stuff, but then they realized that, hey, this is dangerous if I take it out in the street.
This whole industry was born from street racing and from that illicit, illegal activity of running out at night on the streets, and it built a complete industry out of it.
So a lot of the inspiration from our game has come from, the excitement and the energy around drift racing. The fact that muscle cars have come back in a way we hadn't expected in the last couple of years. The import tuner drag scene, and also the new forms of grip racing that are coming out from the tuner scene.
Import drag racing is a rebirth of the original 50s and 60s hot rod era, but with a modern twist. Fuel-injected cars that you can get good gas mileage on and control them, but still drive them on the streets and still make outrageous horsepower with them.
It's really the foundation of this import or tuning culture. Somewhere in the mid-90s, all these import cars became really, really cool.
In terms of the history of the sport, if you look at the most famous makes and models, the Honda Civic was the car of choice, and there's an entire aftermarket industry devoted just to this vehicle.
When I drag raced, there's nothing like that 7 seconds. We're hammering down that track from 0 to 200 mile an hour in 7 seconds. You're basically fighting for your life going down the track, and you've only got a few feet on each side, and you've got a car that's blazing. The tires are just on fire. It doesn't want to go straight. It wants to go right. It wants to go left. I mean, I've tried jumping out of airplanes. I've tried everything to get that rush, and there is nothing that comes close to that. It's just awesome.
Definition of drifting, it's best said that the car looks like it's out of control, but it's on the edge of control at all times.
It's not about checkered flags, not about finish line. It's not even about who the fastest is. It's based on 4 criteria: speed, angle, line, overall excitement, coming fast, coming sideways, coming, throwing smoke. And you get the crowd hyped, you get the judges hyped, you're going to move on.
どういう一つのフィギュアスケートみたいなものなので、エンターテインメント、そういう楽しく見てもらえるっていうので、違うものだと思うので。
The runs are very short, probably you run about 30 seconds. You're holding on, your foot to the floor, there's tyre smoke, the smell. It's just the adrenaline buzz of that really makes it so exciting.
When you start the suiso or tandem bout, 2 cars drifting together side by side, and that's when it's really, really exciting.
One car will lead first, and the second car's job is basically to follow as tight to that car and follow that car's line and demonstrate dominance and try to intimidate them into making a mistake.
You got crashes, you have engines screaming, the smell of tire smoke, and it's just non-stop. Pretty much if you're breathing, you can't keep your eyes off it.
For someone who's unfamiliar with racing, grip racing is actually the anathema of drift racing. The focus is to go around the track as quickly as possible without losing traction. With drifting, it's not necessarily about how fast you go, it's how well you look when you're keeping the car at the edge of control. Grip racing is more about control.
Frankly, it's a blast. You know, you get speed in grip driving that you never get when you're drifting.
Drag racing is a super adrenaline rush that gives you a quick burst. Road racing will take that burst and will extend it over a longer period of time and kind of trickle it out to you.
The major grip racing event is called time attack, which is fastest lap around the racetrack wins.
Time trialing is really guys building badass road race cars and seeing how fast they can get the car around the track by themselves.
They're all on track at the same time, but they're not racing against each other, like in a normal racing sense. They're actually out just battling against the clock. And that's it, simple as.
They absolutely have to squeeze 100% out of the car in that short amount of time. The tires only need to last a couple laps. The driver only needs to last a couple laps. It gets the driver to drive way over the car's natural abilities, jumping curbs and much more violent form of road course racing.
Brutal on machines, on drivers. It's the real test.
If you were to take grip and drift and drag racing, they are part of a larger movement in terms of this whole sport compact tuner culture that we have.
You know, they see these gutted roll cage 886 Corollas with wide wheels and stretched tires. They see all these crazy looking S13s and S14s. You know, they're thinking, hey man, I drive that same kind of car. I can make my car look like that. I think that's definitely one of the appealing factors for this culture.
There's a lot of excitement around these kids coming out and taking over these environments. And they're not making your traditional race weekend, your traditional motorsport event. It's becoming a festival about cars, about youth culture, about what's cool and what they're interested in.
There's not a second of it that isn't fun because there's so many cool people that come out and do these events. It's great to be a part of the whole thing. Cars, women, this is great. Woohoo!